One moment, it's just another day on the road, and the next, it's pure carnage. These are the 5 most disturbing truck crashes ever caught in history. June 7, 2014, a fateful day on the New Jersey Turnpike. A troupe of comedians was headed back home after a show at the Dover Downs Hotel and Casino in Delaware. Among them was James McNair, fondly known as Jimmy Mack. At 62 years old, McNair had built a long career as a comedian and writer. He was also known for his close friendship with Tracy Morgan. That evening, Jimmy Mack stepped into what would become his final ride. He had joined the group to support Morgan's tour, never suspecting the horror that awaited. In the early hours of the morning, just after 1 a.m., tragedy struck. Their limousine van was rear-ended by a Walmart tractor-trailer. The driver had been awake for more than 28 hours. Exhaustion left him incapable of reacting in time to avoid disaster. The impact triggered a chain reaction. 6 vehicles collided in a massive pileup. 1 life was lost that night. James McNair died at the scene, his body unable to withstand the force of the collision. James McNair's story began far from that highway. Born on October 1, 1951, in Peekskill, New York, he grew into a talented and versatile entertainer. But his impact went beyond the stage. He volunteered at a homeless shelter. He cooked for the Salvation Army. He helped organize community events. And he created the original Uncle Jimmy Mack Amateur Hour, a platform where up-and-coming comedians could shine. McNair had once worked construction. He gave it up to pursue comedy full-time, chasing joy and laughter instead of financial gain. Though it brought little wealth, it gave him lifelong friendships. One of those friendships was with Tracy Morgan. They met in the early 1990s at the Uptown Comedy Club in Harlem. As Morgan's fame grew, McNair remained a trusted ally, offering script notes and even contributing freelance work to Saturday Night Live. On the night of the crash, the group traveled in a customized Mercedes-Benz Sprinter limousine. Inside were McNair, Morgan, Artie Fuqua, Jeff Malaya, and others. Behind them, Walmart truck driver Kevin Rohr was struggling to stay awake. He had driven through the night from Georgia without rest. Then, near Cranberry Township, just after 1 a.m., the inevitable happened. The truck slammed into the back of the limousine. The force was apocalyptic. The van was mangled, twisted into a smoldering heap of metal. Inside, passengers were hurled forward with merciless force. The modifications meant to enhance the van became deadly obstacles. Emergency exits jammed shut. A plywood partition trapped passengers inside. And at the rear, where McNair was seated, the brunt of the impact struck. It was fatal. Tracy Morgan's condition was critical. He was placed in a medically induced coma. He had multiple fractures, his ribs, his leg, his face, and he suffered a traumatic brain injury. 8 days later, Morgan regained consciousness, but the road ahead was grueling. 2 months of rehabilitation, therapy to relearn how to walk, speak, and function. He faced emotional battles as well, depression and uncontrollable mood swings. A planned show had to be canceled indefinitely as he focused on survival. In the aftermath, a lawsuit was filed against Walmart. Morgan and the other passengers argued that driver fatigue was to blame. The case ended in a reported $90 million settlement, one of the largest personal injury payouts in U.S. history. But the settlement sparked disputes. Insurance companies claimed Walmart had paid too quickly, doubted the extent of Morgan's injuries, and demanded access to his medical and financial records. The legal wrangling dragged on for years. The National Transportation Safety Board later ruled the crash was preventable. Contributing factors included driver fatigue, speeding, poor van design, and the absence of seatbelt use. The driver accepted a plea deal, avoiding prison time. But the incident fueled urgent debates about safety regulations and fatigue in the trucking industry. Through it all, Tracy Morgan has never forgotten his friend. Every year, he honors McNair's memory. In a Netflix special, Morgan revealed how watching his daughter learn to walk gave him the strength to keep going. His wife helped him return to stand-up. Yet Jimmy Mack's absence remains. During one performance, Morgan left an empty chair on stage. Its vacant seat was a haunting tribute to what was lost. James McNair was laid to rest in Cortlandt Manor, New York. His family later received a share of the settlement funds. Beyond the headlines and lawsuits, one truth endures. The crash left scars that time cannot erase. It took the life of a man who gave laughter, service, and friendship, and its echoes still resonate today. On April 6, 2018, the peaceful highway near Armley, Saskatchewan became the site of a moment that would forever change lives. It was a picture-perfect day, clear blue skies, dry roads, nothing to foreshadow what was about to unfold. A bus packed with 28 members of the Humboldt Broncos junior hockey team rolled north on Highway 35, headed for a playoff game in Nipawin. Players, coaches, staff, all filled with determination. Humboldt itself, with fewer than 6,000 residents, was the perfect home for the team. The Broncos embodied the values, hopes, and dreams of this small town. Players lived with local families, went to school nearby, and became part of the community. The Elgar Peterson Arena stood at the heart of Humboldt, a place of memories, pride, and excitement. The sting of a triple overtime loss in Game 4 still lingered, but the team was ready for redemption in Game 5, and a win would keep their playoff dream alive. At the wheel sat Glenn Dorson, a trusted driver. Morale was high as minutes ticked by. Then came 5 p.m. The bus approached Armley Corner, the intersection of Highway 35 and Highway 335, and time stood still. A transport truck collided with the bus. Behind the wheel was Jasrit Singh Sidhu, a 29-year-old driver from India. His truck was loaded with peat moss, barreling toward the intersection. He was supposed to stop. The flashing sign warned him. But Sidhu never slowed down. Traveling at nearly 100 kilometers per hour, he blew past the stop sign. The impact was violent. The Broncos bus struck the truck's lead trailer, and both vehicles spun into a snow-covered field. The bus's front end crumbled, barely recognizable. Peat moss exploded into the air. Inside, chaos. Passengers thrown from seats, some trapped in twisted metal, others ejected into the snow. The silence of the prairie was broken only by anguished cries. When defenseman Ryan Strashnitzky opened his eyes, he was lying in the snow. The scene was unbearable. Teammates scattered around him, some alive and groaning in pain, others motionless. Nearby lay defenseman Logan Buell. He did not survive. Nick Shulmansky, badly injured, struggled to breathe. 16 people in total would lose their lives. Emergency crews rushed to the scene. 13 survivors were taken to hospitals, but 2 more passed away there. In all, 10 players were gone. Captain Logan Schatz, the youngest player, Adam Herald, coaches, staff, and bus driver Glenn Dorson. The team was devastated. In the aftermath, confusion added to the heartbreak. Defenseman Xavier Label was mistakenly identified as Parker Tobin. Both had dyed blonde hair and playoff beards. The truth only came to light when Label woke in the hospital and stated his name. Tributes poured in from across Canada and beyond. Wayne Gretzky, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, NHL teams wore Broncos jerseys in solidarity. 2 days later, thousands gathered in Humboldt for a memorial. Schools and churches across the nation joined remotely. Team pastor Sean Brando admitted he could not understand why the tragedy had happened. The crash sparked change. Rumble strips and stronger warning signs were installed at Armley Corner. New training requirements were mandated for truck drivers. Seatbelts became required on all new highway buses. Investigations revealed Sidhu had broken safety rules. He exceeded driving limits and kept poor records. At the time of the crash, he was distracted by a loose tarp. Toxicology tests showed no drugs or alcohol in his system. In January 2019, Sidhu pleaded guilty to 29 charges. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Released on parole in 2022, he faced deportation to India. In May 2024, a formal order was issued for his return. His lawyers appealed, citing the health needs of Sidhu's young son. Families of the victims were divided. Some supported deportation. Others, like Evan Thomas's father, said it wasn't necessary. Ryan Strashnitsky, paralyzed from the crash, showed remarkable compassion. He said he hoped Sidhu could find peace, human to human. 16 lives were lost. Dozens more were forever changed. One moment of inattention at a stop sign created a ripple of devastation. Years later, the wounds remain fresh. Physical scars, emotional scars, and the haunting memory of a tragedy that changed Humboldt and all of Canada forever. On the evening of April 10, 2014, just before 6 p.m., a charter bus packed with 44 high school students from Southern California was heading north on Interstate 5 near the town of Orland in rural Northern California. The students were bound for a 2-day college exploration trip at Humboldt State University. Many came from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. For some, this was the first step towards becoming the first in their families to attend college. At the same time, a FedEx truck was traveling south on the same highway. With alarming suddenness, the truck veered off course. It crossed the 60-foot wide grassy median, grazed a Nissan Altima, and then slammed into the charter bus with a deafening impact. The collision was brutal. Both vehicles erupted into flames instantly. Witnesses were stunned. The explosion tore through the bus and the truck, its force reminiscent of a bomb blast. Fire and smoke billowed into the evening sky. Inside the bus, chaos reigned. The fire spread with terrifying speed. Jonathan Gauthier, 17, had been dozing when the crash struck. In a later Twitter post, he described the moment. He was jolted awake, thrown into a panic, and forced to leap for his life. He survived with bruises and a split eyebrow, but he lost everything he had carried with him. Still, he was grateful to be alive. Others were not as fortunate. Ismael Jimenez from Anamowood Charter High School acted with extraordinary bravery. In a desperate attempt to save his classmates, he shattered a window near the front of the bus. One by one, he pulled students through the opening to safety. Several survived because of him. But as the inferno intensified, the heat and flames overcame him. Among the lives lost was Denise Gomez, 18, a student with passions for the environment, soccer, and journalism. She was a leader in the Earth Club, a varsity soccer player, and an editor of the yearbook. Like Ismael, she dreamed of becoming the first in her family to attend college. 3 more students perished. Adrian Castro, 19, from El Monte High School. Marissa Serrato, 17, from Northridge Vista High School in Riverside. And Jennifer Bonilla, from Downey High School in Los Angeles. Cruelly, Marissa's twin sister was on another bus that made the trip safely, even as Marissa's life was lost. Tributes poured in. At the students' schools, memorials appeared, flowers, candles, chalk messages scrawled on sidewalks. 3 adults also died in the accident. Arthur Arzola, 26, an admissions counselor from Humboldt, succumbed to his injuries at the hospital. Michael Mvet, 29, and his fiancée, Madison Haywood, both seasoned volunteers, had returned for a second year of chaperoning the program. They too lost their lives. In total, 10 people were killed, 5 students, 3 chaperones, and 2 drivers. Around 30 others were injured, many with burns and broken bones. Rescue teams described a grim scene. One survivor was still on fire when help arrived. The blaze was so severe that some victims could only be identified through dental records or DNA. The FedEx truck driver, Tim Evans, 32, was also among the dead. He had a clean record, no substance issues, and was reportedly in good health. Investigators found that he had rested the night before and completed an 8-hour shift. The California Highway Patrol concluded the crash was caused when the FedEx truck crossed the median, but the underlying reason remained unclear. There were conflicting reports. Joe and Bonnie Duran, who had been in the Nissan Altima, claimed they saw fire from the truck before the crash, but investigators found no evidence to support this. Attention turned to the missing median barrier. Federal rules required barriers for medians less than 50 feet wide. This one was 60 feet, just outside the requirement. Experts suggested that if a barrier had been in place, the truck might have never reached the bus. Fire safety also came under scrutiny. The bus lacked a fire suppression system, not a requirement at the time. After a deadly 2005 bus fire, the NTSB had urged upgrades. But by 2014, no major safety changes had been implemented. Many believed that such systems could have saved more lives. In the aftermath, student survivors were housed in dorms at Humboldt State. There, they received counseling and support. But one haunting question remained. Why did the truck cross the median? What was meant to be a hopeful journey turned into a catastrophe. A road accident ranked among the deadliest in California's history. Would you risk it all to save the ones beside you? If your answer is yes, smash that like button and subscribe. May 4th, 2013 would become a day of tragedy for the Carth family on Interstate 20 in Georgia. Mary Ann Carth was driving from North Carolina to Texas. The destination? A family wedding, full of laughter, love, and cherished memories. Inside the car, the atmosphere was alive. 3 of her 9 children were along for the ride. Their chatter, their laughter, their playful antics filled the vehicle with warmth and joy. Caleb sat in the front. In the back seat, side by side, Anna Lee and Mary. Anna Lee, 17, thoughtful, artistic, with a passion for writing. She was just weeks away from her 18th birthday. Mary, only 13, wore 2 braids. Her personality was larger than life, and she had a way of making everyone laugh. Caleb, calm and steady, would soon face the ultimate test. Traffic thickened as the midday sun beat down. Cars slowed to a crawl. Mary Ann eased off the gas, keeping a safe distance from the vehicle in front. But behind them, danger approached. A car hauler truck loaded with vehicles, and it wasn't slowing down. The impact was catastrophic. The truck slammed into the rear of the Ford Crown Victoria. The car was crushed, shoved sideways, and thrown into the flow of traffic. Another vehicle struck, forcing the Crown Victoria beneath the trailer of a massive semi-truck. Its enormous weight pressed down like an unyielding vice. Beneath that trailer was an underride guard designed to prevent exactly this. But it failed. It shattered under the force of the crash. The car's rear end was destroyed beyond recognition. Anna Lee's injuries were fatal. She died at the scene. Mary survived the initial impact, critically injured. For 4 days, doctors fought to save her. On May 8th, she too passed away. Mary Ann sustained injuries, but lived. Caleb suffered a concussion, but was released from the hospital the same day. First responders faced a heartbreaking task. To treat Mary's wounds, they had to cut off her braids. It was the first time her hair had ever been cut. Those braids later became a bittersweet keepsake. Mary Ann displayed them at safety events, a tangible symbol of the family's loss. The truck driver was found unconscious at the scene. Investigators determined he had drifted out of his lane and lost control. He pled guilty to charges related to the crash. His commercial driving privileges were revoked for 2 years. The accident was over in an instant, but for the Karth family, life would never be the same. Out of grief came determination. Mary Ann and her husband Jerry needed answers. Why had the underride guard failed? It technically met federal safety standards set back in 1998, but those regulations did not require strength testing, a fatal flaw, because in real crashes, these guards often collapsed. The Karths became relentless advocates for stronger protections. Their voices sparked change. In 2015, Stoughton introduced reinforced underride guards. Vanguard redesigned theirs after feedback. And J.B. Hunt ordered trailers with upgraded safety features. Not because the law required it, but because families, like the Karths, demanded it. Yet real change was painfully slow. A proposal made in 2014 did not become law until 2022, nearly a decade lost to bureaucracy. Mary Ann pressed forward. Alongside Lois Durso, another grieving mother, she petitioned lawmakers, built coalitions, and refused to let the issue die. Their bill never passed in full, but parts of it were folded into the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure bill, a significant step forward, though not the finish line. Even now, side underride guards are not required in the United States, and only 17 states even track underride crashes. The data gap leaves countless families unprotected. In 2023, Mary Ann joined the Federal Advisory Committee on Underride Protection. At home, a memorial bench with sculptures of Annalee and Mary stand in her garden, a quiet place for remembrance and a symbol of her ongoing fight. Underride crashes still happen, but for Mary Ann and Lois, grief has become resolve. They continue their battle for stronger laws, for safer roads, and to spare other families from the same unspeakable loss. Lakewood, Colorado, April 25, 2019. The highway's rhythm was broken. Near the Ward Road exit, a school bus crash had slowed Interstate 70 to a crawl. A long ribbon of brake lights stretched for miles. Only a single lane remained open. Frustrated commuters did not know a far greater tragedy was approaching. As the afternoon sun dipped low, casting a golden glow across the asphalt, Rogel Lazaro Aguilera Medeiros, just 23 years old, guided his 18-wheeler eastbound on Interstate 70. It was 4:30 p.m. His trailer was packed with lumber. His truck barreled down the steep mountain grade near Genesee. The laws of physics now dictated his fate. Aguilera Medeiros had come from Cuba, later moving to Texas, where he drove for Castellano Trucking out of Houston. But this descent would define his life forever. Bystanders stared in alarm. The truck's wheels smoked. The speed gauge surged past 85 miles per hour, a clear sign of disaster. He blew past the first emergency ramp, a lifeline for failing brakes. He ignored it. He passed more exits, another ramp. Still, the truck remained out of control. Ahead, traffic was nearly stopped, still backed up from the earlier bus crash. His brakes were gone. His speed only grew. Drivers swerved wildly as his truck weaved through lanes. One motorist even captured the terrifying scene on live stream near Colorado Mills Parkway. Moments later, the semi plowed into stopped vehicles, 28 of them, including 3 other semis. The highway erupted in chaos. The domino effect was catastrophic. A gasoline tanker, a truck stacked with mattresses, and Aguilera Medeiros' own load of lumber. Together, they created a perfect storm: fuel, flame, and fury. The fireball consumed the wreckage. A monstrous cloud of black smoke twisted into the sky. The roar of explosions shook the area. At 4:50 p.m., emergency crews rushed to the scene, but the devastation had already been sealed. 4 men lost their lives that day: Doyle Harrison, 61, William Bailey, 67, Stanley Palitano, 69, and 24-year-old Miguel Angel Lamas Arellano. 6 others were badly injured, including EMT Malaya Harsh, pregnant at the time. She later admitted she feared for her unborn child. Both, miraculously, survived. Firefighters fought for hours. It wasn't until nearly 10 p.m. that the blaze was finally contained. Interstate 70 remained closed until the following evening. Aguilera Medeiros, astonishingly, was unscathed. The next morning, he was arrested and booked into Jefferson County Jail. The investigation widened, charges mounted, from 1 count of vehicular homicide to 40, including vehicular assault and first-degree assault with extreme indifference. Aguilera Medeiros claimed the brakes failed, a catastrophic, unforeseen event. He insisted he was powerless to stop the tragedy. In court, he broke down in tears. He apologized. He swore he never meant harm. But prosecutors painted another picture: a reckless driver who ignored warning signs, a man who passed multiple escape ramps and never slowed. They also pointed to his employer. Castellano Trucking had a troubling history: over 30 safety infractions in 2 years, including hiring drivers who could not read English, despite all highway warnings being written in English. The failures went far beyond one man. In September 2021, the trial began. A month later, the jury delivered its verdict: guilty on 27 charges. December brought sentencing. Judge Bruce Jones imposed 110 years, not out of choice, but due to Colorado's mandatory sentencing laws. Even he admitted the punishment was excessive. The outrage was immediate. Millions signed a petition. Protesters demanded justice. Many blamed the trucking company more than the young driver. Aguilera Medeiros had no record. He was young, inexperienced, a father, and now facing a life behind bars. On December 30th, 2021, Governor Jared Polis commuted the sentence from 110 years to 10, with parole possible in 5. Today, Aguilera Medeiros sits behind bars, haunted by the question, why me? He struggles with the weight of surviving when others did not. Investigators found no drugs, no alcohol, only a man, a machine, and a deadly chain of failures. Lakewood will never forget April 25, 2019. The crash left scars on families, the city, and the trucking industry. And as a safeguard, the state has built new escape ramps along I-70, silent reminders of a tragedy that should never be repeated. Click on the next video to see more disturbing stories.